Mexico City, night of June 8, 2017. A man crosses San Bernabe Avenue in the San Jeronimo Lidice neighborhood. His destination, house number 907, a modest, silent home with its lights off. He's acting on specific instructions from a concerned relative of the residents, who asked him to check if everything was all right after receiving a disturbing note earlier that day. The message hinted at something terrible. As he slides the key into the lock, the overwhelming silence of the house turns suffocating. The door creaks open. The air inside is thick, motionless, an eerie, artificial calm. As he steps down the hallway, a strange heaviness settles over him. Something feels off. And then he sees it. Rosa, 68 years old, lies motionless on the floor. Her skin is pale, her breathing imperceptible. Just a few feet away, on a cot, her husband Enrique, 70, shows no signs of life. His rigid posture and complete stillness make it clear. He's been dead for hours. The scene is chillingly clinical. No signs of struggle, no forced entry. Just two lifeless bodies, as if they'd been plucked from existence without warning. But the horror is only beginning. Driven by an instinct both primal and irrational, the man ventures further into the house. He opens the door, and what he finds on the other side is nearly impossible to process. On a bed, three small bodies are carefully arranged. Emiliano, 10 years old, and twin sisters Aranza and Regina, 6. Their faces are peaceful, unnaturally still. Each one holds a Bible and a wooden crucifix in their hands. The symbolism is disturbing. The scene feels unreal. Next to them, lying in the same bed, is MIREYA AGRAZ, their mother. No signs of life. At first glance, it seems like the tragedy is absolute. The man stumbles backward, his mind refusing to accept the magnitude of what he's just witnessed. With trembling fingers, he pulls out his phone and dials emergency services. Minutes later, police cars and ambulances flood the street. Officers enter cautiously, photographing every corner, documenting every detail. Paramedics confirm the inevitable. Enrique, Emiliano, Aranza, Regina, and MIREYA are gone. But then, something changes the course of the investigation. Rosa, though unconscious, is still alive. She is rushed to the hospital in critical condition. What started as a homicide case quickly spirals into something much darker. This isn't just another crime. There's no sign of a break-in, no evidence of robbery. The placement of the body suggests something deliberate. But who made the decision? Was this a suicide pact or a meticulously planned murder? To find answers, we need to go back, dig into MIREYA AGRAZ's past, the family conflicts that surrounded her, and the legal battle that pitted her against her ex-husband. Only then will the pieces start falling into place. But the truth, as always, will be far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. The battle between MIREYA AGRAZ and Leopoldo Olvera wasn't just a custody dispute, it was a war, filled with accusations, manipulation, and controversial court rulings that would leave an irreversible mark on everyone involved. The case quickly turned into a legal maze where the line between victim and aggressor became increasingly blurred. Leopoldo introduced the theory of parental alienation, and the judicial system took notice. 6 months after his claim, a judge ordered a psychiatric evaluation to determine whether MIREYA was turning the children against him. The report, prepared by a forensic expert from Mexico City's Institute of Forensic Sciences, found no evidence of abuse. It did, however, suggest that Emiliano was repeating his mother's words when describing the alleged incidents. From that moment, the scales started tipping in Leopoldo's favor. Then came another blow. In December 2012, the judge ruled that Emiliano had to re-establish his relationship with his father through supervised therapy. The court believed parental alienation could be reversed with gradual exposure. That meant Emiliano, who had already voiced his fear and disgust toward his father, was now forced to spend time with him, under professional supervision. MIREYA, who had fought tirelessly to keep her children away from Leopoldo, realized that, little by little, she was losing the ability to protect them. But she didn't give up. She presented new evidence, including reports from DIF, Mexico's Child Protection Agency, and the Association for the Comprehensive Development of Abused People, reinforcing that the children were at risk with their father. Yet none of it mattered. In February 2013, Rocio Estela Gomez Orozco, a psychologist assigned by the Forensic Institute, evaluated Emiliano and concluded that he showed no signs of abuse. The report emphasized that he was sociable, did well in school, and displayed no concerning behavior for his age. That assessment sealed Mireya's fate. The judge ruled that the child wasn't in danger and should continue therapy to rebuild his bond with Leopoldo. With no options left, Mireya reluctantly signed a shared custody agreement in late 2013. The decision was a devastating blow. Emiliano would now spend part of his time under his father's exclusive care. In early 2014, desperately seeking a solution, Mireya changed tactics. After years of fighting, she attempted a cautious reconciliation with Leopoldo. He, in turn, resumed child support payments. Their relationship, while still distant, seemed less hostile. But the peace wouldn't last. In February 2014, during a family trip to Disneyland, the twin girls made a chilling confession. Their father was doing the same things to them that Emiliano had described years earlier. They called him the Wolf, a reference to a mask he allegedly wore during the abuse. Mireya's response was immediate. She cut the trip short and flew back to Mexico, filing a new complaint the next day with the Sex Crimes Prosecutor's Office. But this time, Leopoldo fought back harder. He countered with a lawsuit of his own, demanding full custody of the children. The battle exploded into full force once again. While Mireya struggled to keep her children safe, she also tried to expose the failures of the justice system. She filed a complaint against Judge Espinosa Rosello, accusing her of bias and negligence for ignoring key reports on the abuse allegations. Under pressure, the judge recused herself, and the case was reassigned to Judge Silvia Araceli Garcia Lara from Mexico City's 11th Family Court. In September 2014, another custody hearing took place. This time, the children were called to testify. Emiliano and the twins described the abuse in detail. Then, something chilling happened. Leopoldo was allowed to enter the courtroom while they spoke. Carrying toys for his kids, he approached them. Emiliano reacted instantly. Disgusted, he threw the toys in the trash, saying he wanted nothing from him. Specialists saw this as a clear red flag. Something was seriously wrong in the father-son relationship. But Leopoldo had a strategic move prepared. He presented documents proving that Mireya had attempted suicide in 2006. To him, this was evidence of her mental instability, proving she was unfit to care for the children. Once again, the court sided with him. From that moment, everything spiraled, out of control. Mireya was cornered. One by one, her efforts to keep her children away from Leopoldo failed. The custody battle had already drained years of her life, but now it was heading toward an unthinkable conclusion. What no one knew was just how far she was willing to go to protect her children from what, in her mind, was an unavoidable fate. The legal disputes between Mireya and Leopoldo had turned into a battleground where truth no longer mattered. Every report, every court ruling, every testimony shifted the course of the case, but never provided a clear resolution. It was no longer about protecting the children. It was about winning a war. And in the process, the kids became hostages to a system that saw them more as chess pieces than victims. When Mireya's 2014 abuse allegations against Leopoldo, this time regarding the twins, were dismissed, her credibility collapsed. The court began treating her as emotionally unstable, and her custody battle started to seem like a dangerous obsession. By the end of 2015, the judge ordered her to take the children to a court-monitored visitation center, ensuring they maintained contact with their father. Each visit lasted just 5 to 10 minutes, but failing to comply meant hefty fines or even jail time. To Mireya, this wasn't a compromise. It was a sentence. The pressure escalated further in September 2016, when she filed a third complaint against Leopoldo, claiming that one of the twins had described being abused inside the visitation center's restroom, where there were no security cameras. This time, the prosecutor's office conducted a more thorough investigation. The child underwent a post-psychological test, a method using interactive cartoons to help children express trauma. The results showed no signs of abuse. Additionally, the center's psychologist confirmed that the girl had only used the bathroom 3 times and never in her father's presence. The complaint was dismissed. The prosecution concluded that there was no evidence against Leopoldo. This legal defeat led Leopoldo to cut off child support payments altogether. By this point, Mireya was mentally and emotionally drained and losing control. Desperate, she sought help outside the judicial system. That's when she met Kevin Haubert, an investigator specializing in child abuse cases and a member of Soñando Mariposas, an organization dedicated to supporting victims. When Haubert first met Mireya, he expected to find a mother fighting to protect her children. But what he encountered was something else entirely. Throughout their conversation, Mireya spoke more about her relationship with Leopoldo than about the alleged abuse. The children's safety seemed secondary, overshadowed by a deeper, darker conflict. Hauber's concerns grew when Mireya showed him 15 video recordings she had made with her children. In the clips, Emiliano and the twins recounted their abuse, but in an unnatural, forced way. They looked uncomfortable, hesitated in their responses, and frequently glanced at their mother for approval. Mireya, visibly anxious, corrected them whenever they got a detail wrong. At one point, one of the twins, exhausted, said she didn't want to continue. Mireya's response was chilling. "If you stop now, no one will believe you." For Haubert, these recordings didn't prove abuse. They suggested coercion. He began to suspect that the children had been pressured into repeating a fabricated story. And then came the moment that left him in shock. Mireya asked him to edit the videos, removing parts where the kids seemed uncertain or confused. She wanted the footage to look more solid, more convincing. When Haubert refused, Mireya issued a chilling warning. "If I don't get custody of my kids, I'll do whatever it takes." Those words sounded like a premonition. With every new legal defeat, Mireya became more unstable. She no longer trusted the system. She no longer trusted her lawyers. And time was running out. By early 2017, she realized she was on the verge of permanently losing custody. That's when she made a drastic decision. If she couldn't protect her children, she would make sure they never ended up with Leopoldo. On June 7, 2017, Mireya made her final decision. What had once been a legal battle was now a meticulously planned act. To her, there was no escape. The system had betrayed her, condemned her children to a cruel fate. Now she would take control. That night, every detail was carefully orchestrated. Enrique, the family's patriarch, wrote a farewell letter justifying their extreme decision. In it, he explained that they could not allow the children to be taken by their father. He included money for his other children, Kik and Miguel, instructing them to arrange a proper burial for him, his wife, his daughter, and his grandchildren. That same night, just before midnight, Mireya posted a final photo with Emiliano, Regina, and Aranza. To the outside world, it looked like a loving mother with her children. But for her, it was a goodbye. The execution of the plan began shortly after. Rosa and Mireya crushed antidepressants and mixed them into chocolate milk. They poured the drugged drinks into 6 cups. First, they gave them to the 3 children, who drank them without hesitation. Then, Enrique took his dose, followed by Rosa, and finally, Mireya. The hours that followed were a slow descent into darkness. As the effects of the medication intensified, their bodies surrendered to an irreversible sleep. But Mireya never expected that the plan wouldn't work perfectly. The next morning, a family employee, following instructions from one of Mireya's brothers, entered the house. What he found defied anything Mexico City had ever seen. In the living room, Rosa lay on the floor, still breathing but unconscious. In the bedroom, Enrique was already gone, lying still on a cot. In the next room, the 3 children were lined up side by side, each holding a crucifix and a Bible, and Mireya collapsed. Beside them appeared to have met the same fate. The employee called the police immediately. Within minutes, law enforcement and paramedics arrived. The verdict was clear. Enrique, Emiliano, Regina, Aranza, and Mireya were dead, but Rosa had somehow survived. She was rushed to the hospital in critical condition, where she remained in a coma for several days. The case took an immediate turn. The initial theory of a possible burglary was ruled out. There were no signs of forced entry, no stolen valuables. The crime scene pointed to something far more sinister. A premeditated murder-suicide. Leopoldo wasn't informed right away. He found out through the news. He rushed to the police station, demanding to claim his children's bodies, but by then Mireya's brothers had already taken them for a private funeral. Furious, Leopoldo filed a lawsuit demanding the right to bury his children himself. The court ruled in his favor, and the official funeral took place in Benito Juarez. Meanwhile, Rosa, upon waking from her coma, claimed she remembered nothing. She pleaded temporary amnesia. With the help of her surviving sons, she secured legal protection, preventing any criminal charges. In the end, the Mexico City Attorney General's office closed the case with a devastating conclusion. Mireya, in a state of psychological collapse, convinced her parents that there was no way out. Enrique and Rosa agreed to participate, making them complicit in the tragedy. But the story didn't end there. Days later, the press revealed something shocking. 2 out of 3 forensic reports indicated Emiliano may have been abused. Yet no charges were ever confirmed against Leopoldo. The revelation sparked a national debate. Was MIREYA a desperate mother trying to save her children? Or a disturbed woman, willing to manipulate reality at any cost? To this day, the MIREYA Agraz case remains one of Mexico's most controversial criminal tragedies. A case that exposed the failures of the justice system and left behind a haunting question. Could it have been prevented?